Joining us to discuss are Doug Holtz-Eakin, president of the American Action Forum, who's also former chief economist of the Council of Economic Advisors under George W. Bush, and Gene Sperling, former director of the National Economic Council under both President Obama and President Clinton. He's the author of a new book, Economic Dignity. A very good afternoon to you both. Doug, I'll start with you. Just how good and surprisingly good were these numbers this morning?
Well, they were good news, and I think the question is how good and how much news. To me, the news is there wasn't a second round of knock-on layoffs or firings that produced a negative number in May. That's the news. That's good news. The remainder, people going back to work, we knew there were a lot of temporarily unemployed people who would be brought back. The people who are going to come back easiest did. We just expected it to happen in June. So this is more of a timing phenomenon than really a change in the outlook, in my view.
Doug, what will it do to the calls for another round of fiscal stimulus, to the extension of the relief packages that are already put in place, and including state and local government assistance?
Well, I don't think since this is really just a shift between, May and June, how quickly this happens, I don't think this should change your calculus deeply on what it should look like in October, September, October, which is really what the next legislation is about. And there will be things that have to get done. We're going to have to find a way to get people into workplaces safely. That's going to involve more pressure on the business side to get the liability reforms, on the worker side to make sure that we get PPE and workplace modifications so you can get distancing. It's a lot of work that needs to get done, and Congress can help with that. The states and localities remain an issue, and I think the real issue is how much do they end up borrowing through the Fed and the municipal liquidity facility, and how much does Congress end up helping them out because they've had the undue expenses of the pandemic. So, there's going to be a lot of negotiations going on constantly. I don't think today's report changes deeply the nature of those negotiations. I just think it strengthens the hands a bit for those who are less aggressive.
Gene, the stock market recovery clearly V-shaped. Does this give you hope that the economy will follow suit?
No, unfortunately. I mean, I agree with a lot of Doug's analysis. You've had a dramatic fall. You knew that numbers would get better from the trough at some point. This was a few weeks earlier. But, there's just enormous pain still in this market. I met, people like my former colleague Jason Furman, others say, and even the BLS say, if you look at the numbers, they're probably closer to 16, 17% unemployment. You've still got 6 million more people working part-time involuntarily. I mean, this is an unprecedentedly pained labor market right now. And I think there's a very strong and unfortunate chance that we could stay at double-digit unemployment for quite a long time. So I think that if you want to have a true recovery, then you are going to have to stay with some of these efforts to help state and local so they're not adding to job loss with teacher layoffs, et cetera. I think you're still going to need enhanced unemployment that should be extended until unemployment rates are well below 10%. I think that these things are going to be absolutely essential. And yes, this was a surprising number today, but you have to look at the level. The level is still the most pained labor market that we've seen in 70 years. And we should treat it that way economically, fiscally, but also, from just a human capacity.
I mean, Gene, typically what we've seen when it comes to the, Congress moving fast on stimulus, like we saw with the last relief effort, was that it takes a major market meltdown and some shockingly scary numbers on the economy. So, the more improvement that we see and the fact that, the stocks are about to go flat on the year, I just wonder, Doug doesn't think so, but I wonder if you think that just hurts the urgency factor for more fiscal stimulus, which you just made a pretty good case we desperately still need.
Well, look, I didn't come on to promote my book, but part of it is that your end goal in economic policy is not a stock market valuation or any metric. It's about the happiness and well-being and dignity of American people. And I can tell you that when I was in the White House at the Great Recession, when it was still 8 or 9% unemployment, you could feel the terrific amount of pain. There's so many people are going to lose their health care. There's so many people scared. I mean, this kind of unemployment, when you count underemployment, is well over 20%. It's still the highest in 70 years. And so it is important to keep your eye on the ball, both to be the kind of people we want who look out for each other. But I also think, again, fiscally, it would be a mistake for a member of Congress to stand up and say, well, the stock market's doing well, so I'm not going to look at the degree of unemployment, the degree of people losing health care, the small businesses and jobs that may be lost forever. There's an extraordinary amount of pain, and the best way to reduce that and get the economy is to make people whole, give small businesses more chance to stay alive, and don't add to the pain by starving state and local governments. They didn't do anything wrong. They just happened to be states and local governments during a once in 102-year pandemic.
We'll have you both back on to talk about just how that relief should look and whether there can be an agreement. But for now, Doug and Gene, thank you both very much.